Okay guys, we need to talk about the result of the assessment. The multiple choice quizzes were easy for most of us, but the easy writing part, well, not so much. I noticed a lot of us struggle with explaining the causes and consequences of historical events.
Yeah, the quizzes were fine. I could remember the dates and events, but when it came to writing the essay, I didn't really know how to explain why things happened the way they did. I think we need a better way to show what we understand about history, not just facts.
I agree, James. The essay asked us to analyze things, but it was hard for me to connect the dots. I knew the facts, but explaining why something happened was tougher. Maybe the teacher could help us with more examples of how to structure essays that analyze causes and effects.
Exactly. The problem with essays is that it's not just about what happened, but why it happened and what came out of it. Multiple choice quizzes are good for testing basic knowledge, but we really need something that helps us think deeper, like being asked to compare events or predict consequences.
Yes, the quizzes test memorization, but the essays required us to do a lot more critical thinking. I think the teacher should add more tasks that involve analyzing historical events in different ways, like group discussion or debate, so we can explain our thoughts better.
I like the idea of debates. Maybe the teacher could have us argue different sides of a historical event. It should push us to think about the causes and consequences from multiple perspectives, not just the one we read about in the textbook.
I think another way to help us improve in essays is by incorporating primary sources. If we had documents or letters from the time period, we could analyze them and see how they explain the causes and effects. It might make the whole thing feel more real and less abstract.
That's a great idea, Sophie. Using primary sources would make it easier to understand the historical context. It's one thing to memorize a fact, but it's another to look at a letter or a speech and figure out how it led to an event.
I think we also need more practice writing essays in class, not just during exams. Maybe the teacher could give us smaller assignments where we focus on analyzing one event at a time. That way, we can learn to break things down and understand causes and effects better.
Definitely. I think practice essays would help, but maybe the teacher could also give us some feedback on how we're analyzing the events. For example, they could tell us if we're missing some important connections or if we're not explaining the consequences clearly enough.
Right, feedback is the key. I think it would help us a lot if the teacher explained how we can improve in the areas we struggle with, like analysis and reasoning. And maybe we could even rewrite our essays after getting the feedback.
Yeah, getting a chance to revise our essays based on feedback would be awesome. It would really let us improve and understand where we went wrong. Plus, it would give us a clearer idea of what the teacher expects from us.
So it seems like we all agree that the teacher should mix up the assessments. More critical thinking, more practice with analyzing causes and consequences, and more feedback. I also think that the teacher should include things like debates or group projects to help us explain our thoughts in different ways.
Yeah, and using primary sources and having us analyze them in class could really help too. That way, we're learning to apply what we know to real historical materials.
I feel like if the teacher does all that, we'll be way better at understanding history. It won't just be about memorizing dates, but about thinking deeply about why things happened and what came out of them.
Exactly. History is about understanding the bigger picture, not just memorizing a list of events. So, I think mixing up the assessments and giving us more chances to explain our thinking is a really good move.
Right. And that will make the subject a lot more interesting too. If we get to debate and work with primary sources, we'll be more engaged. We can also learn how to present our ideas better in writing and speaking.
And I think that will help us in the future too, not just for tests. Being able to analyze events and explain our reasoning is something we'll need for college or even in the workplace.
I love that idea. If we practice those skills, we'll be better equipped to handle complex historical questions and even apply that thinking to other subjects.
I think we all agree. More practice, more ways to explain our own ideas. And more feedback will really help. Hopefully, the teacher will take all of this into account when redesigning the assessments.
Definitely, it's all about improving how we show what we know, not just testing facts. Hopefully, the teacher listen to our ideas and make the assessment process better for everyone.